That heavy, ornate frame around a painting in the attic might be worth more than the picture inside it, and most people never think to check. Here is the whole secret. Antique frames are not read by a maker's name, because most were never signed at all. They are read by how they were made, and once you know the tells, you can judge almost any old frame you find. The first tell is the gold. Look closely at the surface. Genuine gold leaf has a warm, rich tone, and if you look closely, you can often see faint overlap lines where the tiny sheets of gold met. Gold paint looks flat and uniform, with no depth to the color. Here is a simple test on a spot that is already damaged. Gently scratch a tiny worn area. Real gold leaf separates into thin, papery flecks. Gold paint chips or turns to powder. The second tell is what is underneath the gold, called gesso. Old frames were carved from wood, then coated in a chalky white plaster called gesso, and the fine detail was shaped into that layer before it was gilded. If you find a small chip, look at what is exposed. White, chalky plaster means gesso, and that points to an older, well-made frame. A plastic-looking, resin-like material means a modern reproduction. Here is a detail most people get backwards. That fine web of tiny cracks across an old gilded surface, called crazing, is not damage. It happens because wood expands and contracts with humidity, but the brittle gesso on top does not, so it cracks over time. Crazing is actually a good sign. It helps confirm the frame is genuinely old, not a fresh reproduction. The third tell is the back of the frame, and this is where reproductions get caught. Turn it around and look at the corners and the hardware. Old frames were often joined with hand-cut joints and older style hardware, sometimes even simple nails or pegs, showing real age and wear. Modern reproductions usually show neat machine-cut miters and shiny modern steel screws or staples. Uneven, hand-finished joinery on the back is a strong sign of age. Perfectly uniform machine work is a sign of a newer piece. Once you have checked the gold, the gesso, and the back, you can also use the style to help date it. Heavy, ornate carving with shells and scrolls points toward the Victorian era. Cleaner geometric lines suggest the Eastlake or Arts and Crafts period. Bold, symmetrical deco shapes point to the 1920s and 30s. Here is one lucky bonus tell for the rare marked piece. Flip the frame over and check for a paper label. Newcomb Macklin was one of the major American frame workshops, and some of their frames still carry an original paper label on the back. Finding one of those is a great day, but do not expect it, since most fine old frames were never labeled at all. Now here's the part that surprises people the most. Because fine antique frames were hand-carved or gilded by skilled craftspeople, a genuinely old, well-made frame can be worth more than the ordinary painting or print sitting inside it. An amateur landscape in a plain frame might be worth nothing. The same amateur landscape in a hand-carved gold leaf gilded antique frame can be worth real money just for the frame. So the routine is simple. Check the gold for that warm tone and overlap lines. Look for gesso instead of resin at any chip. Flip it over and read the joints and hardware. Notice if the style points to a specific era. And remember that crazing is a good sign, not bad. Go look at the frame around that old painting or mirror in the attic tonight. You might be looking right past the most valuable part.